Hello and welcome back. So in the last lecture, we implemented lazy loading for the routes in our application. Now in this lecture, we are going to lazy load the NgRx states. So let's see how we can do that. Let's go to our application. And here if you see, in this counter folder, we have a state called counter state, right? And this state we are only using inside the counter components. And since we have created a separate module for this counter, we can say that we are using these states only in the counter module. In the same way, if I open this courses folder, there also we have created a state and we are calling it as courses state. And this state, we are only using it inside the courses module. So outside of this courses module, outside of this course related components, we are not using this course state anywhere else. So what we want is whenever we are lazy loading the counter module, with that only we want to load the counter state. And whenever we are lazy loading this courses module, with that we want to load the courses state. So in simple words, we can say that I want to lazy load the NgRx states which we have created in this Angular application. Okay, and to show you that currently all the states are being loaded during the initial load of the application, if you go to our application, there, if I open developers tool and let's go to this Redux tool, there you will see for our application. Okay, let me reload the page. So when I'm reloading the page, currently only the code related to home component and the app related code and files will be downloaded, right? Currently, since we have not went to the counter page or the courses page, the files and the code related to counter and courses has not been loaded. But in the state, you can see that we already have the state for counter and courses. Counter state we are using in the counter module in the counter page, and courses state we are using in the courses page. And currently counter and courses has not been loaded yet, but still the state is available. So instead of loading the state during the initial load itself, what I want is, since I'm using this counter state in the counter page, I want to load this counter state whenever the code and the files related to the counter module will be downloaded. And I want to load this courses state whenever the code and the files related to courses module will be downloaded. So I also want to load this counter and this courses state lazily. And to do that, let's go back to VS Code. And what we are going to do here is, let's go to app module file, and the states which I showed you in our application, basically this counter state and the courses state, it is coming from this app reducer. And this app reducer we have defined inside the app state. So here we have this store folder. If I go inside that, we have this app.state.ts. So here we are creating this app reducer. This is an object which stores the counter state and the courses state, and these states are mapped to a reducer. So basically that state which I showed you in the application, it is coming from this object. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove that object from there, and currently we do not have any application wide state. So here I'm going to pass an empty object. This is the first step. Here we will add only those states which is required throughout the application. So for example, in the future we will create this is loading state, and this is loading state will be required throughout the application. So those types of states we can add for root. But the counter state, it is specific to counter module, and the courses state, it is specific to courses module. So we are going to specify them in those particular modules. So let's go to the counter module, and in here inside this imports array, we are going to import store module. Okay, and on that we are going to call for feature method, because here we want to create a store for this counter feature, for this counter module. And to this, it is going to take two arguments. Okay, so the first argument will be the name for the state which you want to provide. Here I can provide counter. You can specify any name. And the second argument will be the reducer to which this state should be mapped. So it should be mapped to counter reducer. And this is it. Same thing we are going to do for course module. So let's go to courses folder, and there we have StoreModule.ts file. Here also in the imports array, first of all, we are going to import the store module, and on that we are going to call forFeature method. And to this forFeature method, first we need to specify the name for this state. I'm going to call it as courses, and then as the second argument, we need to specify the name of the reducer to which this state should be mapped. In this case, it should be courses reducer. And let's import it and let's provide it here. And with this change, let's go back to our application. And now you will see for the initial load, the state is an empty object. Okay, you can see that the state is an empty object. But when I go to counter, you will see for the counter module, we have this counter state where we have two properties, counter and toggle. So now the counter state has been loaded for our application. And now when I go to the courses page, then the courses state that will also get loaded and it will be added to the store. So now if you see the whole state, there we have the counter state with two properties, and we have this courses state with this courses and with other states, other state properties. So you see the counter state was loaded only after we visited this counter page, and this courses state was loaded only when we visited this courses page. So now these states are also getting lazy loaded. And in this way, we have slightly improved the performance of our application. So I hope now you understand what do we mean by lazy loading the NgRx state. All right, now what I will also do is let's go back to our code. And here if you see again, I'm using a string value. But for this string value, for the string courses, we have created a constant. So in our application, we have this constants.ts. So for this courses, we have created a constant called courses state. So in here, I'm going to use that constant. So the constant is courses state, and to use it, we need to import it. And in the counter module here also, we are using a string value. And for that also, we have created a constant and we are calling it as counter state. So in order to use it, we need to import it, and then we can use that constant instead of a string value. And with this, let's quickly test the functionality of our application. So let's first go to counter. There, the increment is working, decrement is working, reset is working. Let's set custom input, that is also working. Let's go to courses. There, let's try to create a new course. Let's set the author as John Smith, and let's set the price as 39.99. And when I click on this create course, you see that course has been created. If I click on this edit course, and let's add some more text here, and in here let's add from beginner to advanced, and let's go ahead and let's update the course. So you see the course has been updated. If I click on this delete button, the course is also deleted. So all the functionalities are working as expected. Now in this section, we learned about NgRx store in great detail. Now from the next section, we are going to start learning about NgRx effects. So far we have learned about NgRx store and NgRx DevTools. From the next section, we are going to learn about NgRx effect. This is all from this lecture and from this section. If you have any questions, then feel free to ask it. Thank you for listening and have a great day.